Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Diaries of a 20-something. I'm Paige Marquez, your host, and today we're going to be talking about a topic that I think is really important, especially because when we get into our 20s, life gets really busy, especially with building our careers and side hustles and everything. As a lot of you know, I used to be a writer. I don't really know if I would still classify myself as one because I haven't done it in a while. I used to write for a publication called CKTH, and I would write a lot of lifestyle articles and stuff like that, and I really did love it. I did that starting beginning of junior year of college and did that up until I moved here pretty much. So I haven't done it in about 3 or 4 months, which feels like a really long time just because I used to write all the time, oftentimes multiple things at once, just always pushing out articles. And as we get older, our lives get busier, and oftentimes that can make it hard for us to keep going with our passions and put time towards them. Lately, I've been really trying to reconnect with it, whether it be in a personal way or a professional way. It can be so easy to not put any focus into your side hustles or your passions. If they're the same thing, then great for you. If they're not, they're not. But it can be so hard to stay connected with them when life gets busy. And I think what I'm realizing slowly is that it really just is all about how you prioritize your time and how important it really is to you, because if something really isn't that important to you, you're not going to do it. Additionally, if you guys saw my last episode, you guys probably know that I have not been doing amazing recently from a mental health perspective. And when you combine that with a busy work life, the motivation to put any time towards the things that you truly love that also require work can be very difficult. And oftentimes when that happens to us, we can lose a lot of motivation. And I don't know about you guys, but I've always been very defined by my passions and by what I love doing, which is writing. And you kind of lose a sense of self when you stop doing them, I've noticed. So let's get into it. So I've always been somebody that really enjoys writing. Even as a kid, I remember writing essays on like random topics because I just loved putting things out on a page, no pun intended. But whatever it was, like essays, poems, notes, it didn't matter. Like I just loved putting my ideas on something so tangible. Weirdly though, I've talked to a lot of other people that write, and what I've noticed about myself is I'm not a person that's like crazy into reading. I like reading articles, but my attention span is really short. So if it's not that I don't like reading, but if it's not engaging enough, I'm not going to be able to focus on it. But when I would read as a kid, and even now still sometimes, I would like annotate what I was reading, like being like, oh, I like the way that the author wrote this. I like the way that she formed, how she explained that feeling, or like, I don't like this. Like I would just like write notes on it, like as if I was grading a paper. And like, I still kind of do that, just like in all aspects of journalism. You know, if I see a news article come out, I'll be like, oh, that's horrible journalism. Like I can tell they were on a deadline and had nothing else to write about. And I think that's just what comes with being so educated in one field. I can imagine that my parents would do the same thing when it comes to critiquing other people in their field. I think that that's pretty normal. But recently, I just haven't had any time to put towards writing. I mean, I work a lot, and then I also have the podcast. And between those two things, I really don't have that much time for extracurricular activities. A couple weeks ago, I was scrolling through my camera roll, just like being nostalgic and weird. And I was just looking through like everything. And I was like, I can like pinpoint during what parts of my life I was writing certain articles, if that makes sense. So I started to read my old articles that I've had published through CKTH and other things as well. It kind of made me sad almost. Like I missed writing, like I missed the process behind it and just like the accomplishment of being published. I mean, it's like being published is not something that most people can say that they are. That was always something about writing that really made me proud of myself, was actively being published on a regular basis and not having that. Like I know like this, yes, like this is very similar to writing in the sense where it is very adjacent to lifestyle articles, except it's just a different form. And like, yes, these are getting published, but it's different when I don't control it and it's getting published. Throughout my life, whenever things got really tough for me, I would always write about it, normally in the form of poetry. I've never like gotten any kind of poetry that I've written published. I think like it's just very personal to me, and I like to keep it like my own little realm of writing that I can just like keep for myself. But that's normally what I do when things get really tough for me, whether it's like a heartbreak or just like burnout or like whatever the case may be. I put it into poetry. As much as I would love to share it with you guys, it's kind of like violently depressing, and I think I would rather spare you guys that experience. But I haven't even been doing that recently. I've had the urge to do it a couple times, but I just never actually did it. I think a part of what's stopping me from writing again and what's keeping me from doing it is the fear that I'm not as good as I used to be, like the fear that I'm like out of practice. And I know it's only been 4 months, but writing, stuff like that needs to be practiced constantly. Otherwise, you fall behind. But I feel like it's all about starting small. Like, I'm not saying that with the job and the podcast, I could be pushing out articles as much as I was in college. I mean, that sounds really unrealistic. I don't think I'd be able to do that. Maybe once in a blue moon, I'd have enough time like that, but consistently, no. I think poetry, for me at least, is a great way to start and reconnect with it and feel excited about it. I used to feel so excited about writing, and I've been in talks with the founder of CKTH, who I've built a really good professional relationship over the years recently, about starting to write again. But I have such like a fear of doing it in the sense of like, I feel like it's not going to be as good as it used to be. In order to do that, I need to start writing again. Even if it's stupid, I just need to start writing again, even if it's for nothing, just to build up my confidence with it. I know this is different for everyone, but when it comes to creativity, I find that the most of it comes out for me at nighttime. I edit a lot at nighttime. I used to write at nighttime. It's something about nighttime and just like letting the creativity flow with like some good music. But unfortunately, I only really have free time in the mornings now. So it's just about readjusting that. There's also such a difference between writing for yourself and writing for the public. And I feel like I haven't written for myself in a while, because when I was writing a lot in college, I was still really only doing it for the public. I have a couple pieces that I wrote for myself that I did have published later. But when you write something and your full intention is to keep it to yourself, like the poetry, there's something really amazing about how imperfect it is. Because when you put something online, especially when it's attached to your name, you want it to be as perfect as it can possibly be in every way possible. But when you're writing something for yourself, it can be as imperfect as possible, and it doesn't even matter. I often find that the more imperfect it is, the more beautiful it is, if that makes sense, because it's just so raw and it's so filled with emotions and filled with questions. And I think that is how life is sometimes. So I think that there's a lot of beauty in doing things and producing things that are so imperfect. I also love being able to like look back at it like I did the other day. I also looked back at all of the poetry I've written along the years. I have it all in a folder in my notes app called Feelings, and I think every girl does. But I was just looking through them, and I never changed them in any way because I like to see the date on them. I know if I even like add a space in there, it's going to update to this day. So I was looking back ones from like 2016, 2017 even, and I'm just like, damn. Sometimes I don't even remember what they were fully about, but it's just being able to be like, wow, I was really feeling that way, and like look how I was like exactly a year after that. Like I touched on a little bit earlier, this podcast is kind of an adjacent version of journalism. I definitely share more of my life on this podcast than I did in my articles. However, I think that's kind of the point. And I think this is a way more engaging version of writing, because I do write out all the episodes before I film them, and I read it over a couple times. I normally don't have to look back because it's like my thoughts. So it's mostly just like to keep myself on point and from getting distracted and like talking on like aimless tangents. Because if you know me well, if you've ever heard me tell a story before, you know that there is like 7 different stories within one story with like 12 different side plots. So it can get a little confusing listening to me sometimes, and I'm aware of that, which is why I do an outline. But yeah, I definitely share a lot more of my life on this than I did in my articles, but I think that this is way more personal. And I never really understood why people got in such a funk about sharing their life on the internet, because I think one of the most beautiful things about the internet is the fact that, yeah, we may all have no original experiences, but isn't that comforting? If you're feeling a certain way and like you want to put it on the internet, put it on the internet. It's not that big of a deal. Same with like people being embarrassed about posting on social media and stuff. Like, I understand that because I used to be, but somewhere around college, I just stopped giving a and now I post on the internet very often. I often share too much, but like, whatever. Like, it's not like I'm like going out here telling people I killed somebody. Like, no, like, it's just how I feel. It's not that big of a deal. Someone will relate somewhere. And I think that's beautiful. Pursuing your passions can really be an amazing thing. And podcasting is one of those passions. I think I have one overall passion of sharing my ideas, but there's so many ways to do that, right? But even with it being a passion of mine and me love doing it, I'm not going to sit here and say that some days it is hard for me to do it because I'm tired or I'm unmotivated or I don't know. I just like get so in my head. Like the procrastination is like insane. Like recently in general, it's been harder for me to get things done and like be productive just because how I've been feeling. But I think it's important to be able to differentiate that and be like, okay, I actually don't like doing something, or like, okay, I'm in a funk. Even if it's just for 5 minutes a day, I think reconnecting with something that you love is really important and can be really beneficial. When I say get back into your passions, I'm not saying go 100% into it. Like even just a little bit a day, like microdosing can just keep you sane. Passions are what make you and what make life vibrant. No matter how busy you are, it's never too late to go back to them or even reinvent them, like how I did with this podcast. I know that unless I get a job in the writing industry, I probably will never write as much as I used to, but I have the podcast, so it's okay. And I love doing this. And honestly, like if you are my age or older or whatever, and you still don't know where your passion is, that's fine. I feel like it takes a long time. Me, I just found mine at a very young age, but I didn't know it was my passion until college. Let me know in the comments if you guys have ever had a passion that you lost touch with and if you ever reconnected with it. As much as I really want to tease the next couple episodes, I'm not going to, because once this episode is out, it will be after Thanksgiving. So that means that the next episode is going to be December. And I have a very fun plan for December. It's all going to be Christmas themed. It's all going to be fun, kind of like what I did on Halloween, but like way more planned out. That was a really last minute decision, so I was kind of scrambling. Thank you guys so much for watching. This was Diaries of a 20-something, episode 24. We are at the 6-month mark now of when I started this, which is like insane. Like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you guys next Friday. Mwah.